Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Maddie. Today I'm going to be doing a get ready with me while I tell you a story time about my labor and delivery with my second baby. We are going to the mall today. I don't know what it's called, but apparently it's like the 4th biggest mall in the United States and the biggest mall on the West Coast is what my husband was telling me. So I'm just getting ready for that. But I figured I'd do a story time because I've been meaning to make this video because my labor and delivery was definitely worth talking about because it was crazy. My due date was November 27th and I had my 39-week appointment that Friday before Thanksgiving, and they checked to see if I was dilated, and we're gonna see if there was any possibilities of being induced, because at that point I was really miserable in my pregnancy. I was miserable the whole time basically, and I had preeclampsia with my first, so they were monitoring me closely to make sure that didn't happen with my second. But luckily throughout my entire pregnancy I had a healthy blood pressure the entire time, but they just kept monitoring me just to be on the safe side. I wasn't dilated at all, so they didn't even mention the induction possibility on the Friday that I went for my 39-week appointment. And my nurse that had checked me, she was like, yeah, you're not dilated at all, but the baby's head is really far down. So like really far in my pelvis, I guess. Is that right? I don't know. She basically just said the baby is very, very head down, like really deep. And once my contractions are about 5 minutes apart, just to head straight to the hospital. Yeah, that was on Friday. And then it's actually funny because Sunday night I did like an everything shower because I don't know, I had like a feeling the baby was gonna come that week. But then also I was just doing like my weekly maintenance. I shaved, I exfoliated, I washed my hair, I did a blowout, and my hair came out so good that night. I was actually like so happy. But anyways, that's besides the point. And then I go to sleep like normal. This is on Sunday the 24th, I think it is. Yeah, when I took the everything shower. From like 30 weeks up until I gave birth, I would get like Braxton Hicks in the middle of the night, and I would just sit in a different position and they'd go away. So this night, Sunday night going into Monday morning, I was having Braxton Hicks again. And I was like trying to get in a different position. Nothing was helping. And then I felt the need, like I needed to go to the bathroom, like I needed to go to number 2. And so I go to the bathroom, I do my business, and then I'm like, okay, I feel better. And then I get another Braxton Hicks, and I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? Like, this is actually so painful. And mind you, this was at 4:20 in the morning, like exactly like on the dot, 4:20, right? They're painful. And I keep thinking that I need to go to the bathroom because, like, you know that pain when you have to go number 2? That's what I kept feeling. And I kept trying to go to the bathroom and like TMI, but like a little bit kept coming out each time. So I was like, yeah, maybe I just have to poop like really bad. Then like one of the times, because I go like multiple times, try to go to the bathroom multiple times, and on the last try like nothing is coming out, but I'm in so much pain, and I'm like, maybe I'm having real contractions. And so I start timing them on the little contraction app that I have, and these suckers are 2 minutes apart. I actually am having contractions. So I was like, oh my God, I think I'm going into labor. And my husband works night shifts, so it's 4:20 in the morning. His shift doesn't come in until 5, and even if they were to let him go, it would still be a long process because he has to give back his weapon and all his gear and stuff. So I'm just keeping him updated, like I think I'm going to labor. I don't feel good, like I'm in pain. And mind you, I still have a toddler. But it's actually funny because one of the times that I was going to the bathroom, he actually woke up and ran into, I left the bathroom door open just in case he woke up, and he did, and he ran into the bathroom while I'm trying to go to the bathroom, but I'm actually just having contractions. And honestly, I'm surprised I didn't push that baby out on the toilet because of how many times I was going to the bathroom. So I'm trying to do my business, but in reality it's not business, it's a baby's coming. But like, because my first baby I was induced, so I didn't really know what to expect from a natural labor, like without it being forced. And my due date was November 27th, and so Monday was November 25th. And so I'm like, I think I need to go to the hospital. Luckily, I had my hospital bag packed and I kept timing my contractions and they were 2 minutes apart. Like it was like on the dot, like 2 minutes, and they were painful. Like I would have to stop, roll over, and just basically endure the pain. So that's how I knew it wasn't Braxton Hicks, because when I did have the Braxton Hicks, the moment I would get into a different position, it would go away. So I'm like, okay, I think I need to go to the hospital. And I was like, you know what, let me just go and sit in the parking lot just in case this is like false labor. At least I'm in the parking lot already if it is real labor. So I'm packing up, I'm putting the hospital bags in the car, and then my son, I put a hoodie on him, and luckily we have a Duna car seat, which basically is like an infant seat that has the wheels on it already, so you can just pop it up right out of the car and it turns into a stroller, and he still fits in it. So luckily I had that. I put him in that in my car really quick, and I drove myself to the hospital while having contractions that were 2 minutes apart, and I literally don't know how I made it to the hospital, but I did. It was like 5 in the morning at this point, because I got to the hospital and was filling out paperwork by 5:45. So I'm driving to the hospital, right? I'm driving me and my toddler to the hospital. My husband's still trying to get out of work, and I'm literally having contractions while I'm driving, right? And I'm still timing them on my phone. Like I have my phone on my like little center console, and I'm like checking to see if they're still 2 minutes apart, which they were. I get to the hospital and it was so hard to find the labor and delivery building because it was kind of like hidden, and the parking, luckily there was parking spots, because that parking lot I guess apparently gets really full, but there was parking spots. And it's funny because before I even found the parking lot, I parked in front of the labor and delivery building. I was like, is this a labor and delivery building, to the security guard in the front? He's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, where do I park? Like, I think I'm going to labor. And he was like, oh, and he walked outside of the door. He's like, go park in that parking lot over there. And so I did. I go park. Like I said, luckily I had the Duna stroller, and I just popped Tino out of the car and busted up the wheels and started walking towards the labor and delivery building. It was not far, but I had 2 contractions on the way to the building. It's funny because there was like security guard, because it's right next to the emergency room, and there was security because it was like, you know, the crazy hours, I guess, for hospitals. And they were just watching me. I don't know, but they were basically just watching me while I literally stopped in my track, had a contraction, and then continued walking to the front door. There was a couple in front of me who was walking so slow, but they were in front of me, so they checked in first, and then I'm literally like standing in line like having contractions, because me and then the couple, we both get on the elevator, go to the second floor, because the first floor is just like security check-in for like visitors and stuff. They're like in front of me, and then I just remember her saying, oh, like I have a scheduled C-section. The front desk lady was taking her sweet time with that couple, and I was literally like standing in line with my baby, like having contractions. It's my turn at this point, and the lady's like, hi, how can I help you? I was like, I think I'm going into labor. And then she's like, okay, fill out this information. And I'm like, bro, like in my head, I'm like, I'm literally having like so many contractions, and you want me to fill out information? And so I'm like, okay, whatever. I go sit in like the little waiting room area. The couple's like kind of across from me. As I'm trying to fill out this paperwork, I'm having contractions mid paperwork, and it asks like the time that you got to the hospital. So I know I got there at 5:45 because I remember writing that in that slot, trying my hardest to fill out this information. My handwriting is so sloppy because I'm literally having contractions. I'm trying to breathe myself through these contractions while my baby is right next to me. Then a like security guard, or I don't know, but somebody comes up to me with like a paperwork and was like, please sign this paper saying that we won't disclose any medical information about you. I just start signing because I'm like, dude, I'm in so much pain, like I need to be admitted now. Then while I'm doing that with the security guard lady, I have a contraction and trying to get through it, but I guess she saw me like not breathing, so she was like helping me breathe through the contraction. She was like, don't forget to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, blah 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 blah. I do all that, sign whatever paperwork. She leaves. A nurse comes and gets me. She's asking me questions I don't even really know because I'm in so much pain from these freaking contractions, right? And she's like, oh, how's your baby, blah 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 blah. I'm like, literally I stopped in my tracks on the way to the triage room because I'm having a contraction, and then she's just kind of like standing there. We get to the triage room. She's like, oh, get undressed, put this gown on, blah 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 blah. And then I'm like in the middle of getting undressed, and I'm like, please, can I get the epidural? Like I need, like as soon as possible, I need it. And she's like, yeah, I just have to check you first and then we'll get that for you. And then I remember as I'm getting undressed, she's like laying the baby monitors that they put around your belly on the hospital bed. She's like, okay, get up here, I need to see how dilated you are. And then I'm like, okay. I get up there and she's like checking me, whatever, and she's like, she's in there and she's like, I can't feel him really. Like, she kind of just seems unsure, but like she doesn't really say much. She counted my contractions too. She was like, oh, those are 2 minutes apart. I was like, yeah, they've been 2 minutes apart since I woke up this morning. She's like, just wait here, and then she leaves. I have like a few contractions while she's gone, and I'm literally like outwardly expressing the contraction pain because I just can't hold it in anymore. I'm like, oh, like, you know, that, I don't know, like, I don't know. If you know, you know. If you don't, I don't really want to make the noise. She goes, and then she comes back in my triage room. Mind you, I'm still not hooked up to no monitors, no IV, nothing, right? She comes back with like 4 nurses, and they're like, oh my god, like, hi, blah, 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 blah. And then they see my baby, and they're like, oh, there's already a baby. And they're like, and you're pregnant? I was like, yeah, there's 2 babies. One of the nurses grabs like my stuff and the baby, and Tino, because he's in his car seat. And then the other nurses grab like whatever monitor, and they start moving the bed. And I remind you, I'm not set up to any monitors. I don't have any IV in my arm. I'm just having full-on contractions at this point. And they take me to the delivery room. That's basically it. They take me to the delivery room. Everyone's like getting set up. Like they're putting like little, those napkin things, those medical disposable napkin things, I don't know, under me. Because I'm about to give birth. And I'm like, please, I need the epidural because I can feel like literally everything at this point, and I'm in so much pain. I think they're like asking me like, where's my husband? I'm like, he's on the way. He works night shift. Like, he's on his way. And I was like, no, like, I can't give birth yet. Like, I cannot push this baby out yet because my husband with Tino, he was on his way back from deployment. Literally the day I was induced, and his planes got delayed, and it was like a whole thing, and he missed the birth of Valentino. So I was like, no, like, I cannot give birth yet. Like, he needs to be here. But I just kept begging them for the epidural. I was like, please, please, please. And they're like, oh no, like, it's too late. It's all gonna go to the baby. And I was like, no, like, no. Because I'm telling you, it was so painful. At this point, every time I'm having contractions, I'm like yelling, screaming out loud. It's actually so sad because when I was pushing, I was screaming, and I could just hear Tino crying in the background. And I don't think normally babies are allowed in the delivery room, but I guess since my labor was progressing so quickly, and obviously my husband was coming from work, so he didn't have the baby, one of the nurses was like in the corner, like holding him, like consoling him. But it's like, I was just in like a state of mind where like I couldn't really focus on anything. Like, I was just in so much pain. I'm like, no, like, I cannot have this baby yet. And then I'm having contraction after contraction after contraction. And then at some point I'm like, no, this baby needs to come out. I was like, I need to push. And they're like, okay, like, push. Like, when you want to push, you push. And I'm holding onto the bedroll, and there's a nurse right here. I'm like, I need to push. She's like, push, like, come on, let's do this. I'm pushing, I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. And not even I'm pushing, my body is pushing for me. I wasn't controlling the pushing, my body was controlling the pushing. It just took over. Like, I don't even remember. I was in so much pain that I couldn't even push myself. Like, my body was pushing for me. Like, does that even make sense? And they kept telling me to hold my legs up, but like, it's like when I had the epidural with Tino, I could hold my legs up because I didn't feel anything. With Roman, when they kept telling me to hold my legs up, I was like, I can't. And I'm like gripping the sides of the beds, like in so much pain, and they want me to hold my freaking legs up. But mind you, there's like 15 nurses in this room, and so some of them come up on the sides and hold my legs up for me. I'm like, I'm in so much pain, I cannot think about holding up my own damn legs, you know what I mean? And they're like, come on, push some more, like, he's almost out. I'm telling you, I pushed him out in like 2.5 pushes, but those 2.5 pushes, I just like low-key remember like blacking out. And remind you, I don't have like an IV, I don't have anything connected to me. I'm just full on raw dogging this labor, basically. I just remember hearing Tino crying in the back. But then also when they brought me to the delivery room, they kept asking me questions like, oh, he's so cute, how old is he? I'm like, bruh, I cannot talk to you right now. I know they're trying to help me like distract but there's nothing that's going to distract me from the pain that I'm in. And yes, it's very painful. People aren't being dramatic. Apparently it's one of the most painful things a human body can experience, I guess. I don't know, but I believe it because that shit was painful. So I pushed him out in 2.5 pushes, right? And I remember the OB doctor, whatever, was like, oh, do you want to cut the umbilical cord? And I'm like so exhausted at this point. Like I hear her say that, but my body's just kind of like limp. And so she's like, okay, I'll cut it for you. So she cuts the umbilical cord, and then they put Roman on my chest. And literally right when they put Roman on my chest, Angel walks to the door. Like he just got there. And so basically he missed another baby being delivered. But honestly, it's okay because I don't know if I wanted to see him to see all that going on down there, because there was a lot going on down there, if you're catching my drift. They finally get an IV hooked up to me after I already give birth. Oh, also, I barely had a tear. Like, I didn't even need stitches. And it did go by so quick because I literally pushed him out in 2.5 pushes. And when he was born, it was 6:14 in the morning. So my contractions when I woke up in the morning started at 4:20, and I pushed him out at 6:14. So not even 2 hours later from when my contractions started. That's how quick everything went. So like, remind you, I got to the hospital at 5:45 and had him at 6:14. That's how quick it can go, especially with like your second baby, I guess. And I'm just like surprised I even made it to the hospital, like driving myself and stuff. Like, go me, with a toddler, mind you. But yeah, everything after that was basically normal. They just take all the little tests for the baby and stuff like that, and then they move me to the postpartum unit. Everything's going good. Like, it's just normal days that you have in the postpartum room. My blood pressure was looking good because, you know, they kept checking me regularly because of my history of preeclampsia. So this is going into Monday morning, right? Because I had him at 6 in the morning, so the rest of Monday evening. And the doctors kept coming there like, yep, if your blood pressure stays good, we're gonna discharge you tomorrow morning. Yeah, being Tuesday morning. But it felt like I was there for so long because I got there so early in the morning on Monday. Everything was good. They did all the tests. Roman did good. I did good. And they discharged us Tuesday morning, right? They're like, just keep an eye on your blood pressure. If you feel like, if you take your blood pressure and it's over this, like, call the hospital, blah, 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 blah. So I'm home for about 4 hours, and then I just start feeling like terrible. Like, I just don't feel good. So I'm like, let me take my blood pressure. And my blood pressure was like skyrocketed. It was like 180 over something. And then I was like, okay, let me like relax for a little bit, retake it. And then it was like 170 over something. Like, it was going down, but it was still really high. So I called my triage nurse because it was 11 at night. Because she was like, oh, like, what made you take your blood pressure? I was like, they just told me if I didn't feel good to take it, and I started not feeling good, and it was this. And then she's like, oh, do you have any like stomach pains? And I was having terrible, absolutely terrible stomach pains to where I was like hunched over, like holding my stomach. Like, it was so bad. She's like, okay, yeah, you need to go back to labor and delivery, and it's like 11 at night, right? 11 p.m. Tuesday. Tell them I sent you. Tell them your blood pressure. Tell them you just had a baby. Tell them everything. And so I'm like, okay. So me and Angel go back to the hospital. Luckily, my in-laws were in town that week, just coincidentally, because, well, they planned that trip, but it was just so happened that I had the baby that week, which it actually worked out so perfect, because if we had to take Tino and Roman back to the hospital, I would have to go alone because they wouldn't be allowed there. Basically, they would be allowed there as a visitor, but that would just be too much. So luckily my in-laws were in town, so Roman and Tino stayed home with them. And like, it was heartbreaking because it's like I couldn't even spend my first night home with my babies, but you know, like, I needed to get myself right so I could take care of them. So I went back to the hospital, and this is where it gets like annoying, right? I go in, and remember how I told you the first floor of the labor and delivery building is like security and check-in? We go there, tell the girl like why we are there, and so she's like, okay, give me 1 second. And she calls like upstairs to like the check-in lady, nurse, whatever, and she tells them the situation. And then I guess the lady upstairs tells the security guard to tell us to go to the ER. And I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, that's gonna take forever, but if that's where they're telling me to go, okay. I go to the ER, get checked in. It takes me forever to get through triage because the triage nurse was just asking me like a million questions, like, why do you have high blood pressure? Do you normally have high blood pressure? I don't think he was grasping the fact that I have history of preeclampsia, and I literally had a baby yesterday, because he kept asking me the same questions over and over again, and he looked confused. And I was like, okay, this is gonna be a long night. And so they're like, okay, they take a few urine samples, they take blood samples, blah, 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 blah. And then they say, okay, go wait in the waiting room. We'll call you when, like, your test results come in, whatever. We sit there for 4 hours. They get me into the hospital bed. They're taking blood pressure readings, which are high. Well, okay, so actually the triage nurse was like, well, it's not that high. To be considered high, it has to be above 160. And I'm like, do you not realize I had a baby yesterday, and for like postpartum or pregnant people, over 140 is high, and it was in the 150 160s basically. That's why I'm saying, like, he just looked confused. Like, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, it was, yeah, whatever. The nurse that helps me in the back, who's just taking my blood pressure readings, is like, so we're gonna send you to labor and delivery. And I'm like, that's where I was originally supposed to go. So you're telling me I did all this stuff for 4 or 5 hours just to be told to go back to labor and delivery? So I was like, okay, whatever. And they wheeled me in the hospital bed to labor and delivery. They take me to a triage room. They give me an IV and stuff like that. They do blood pressure readings. And one of the nurses like, yeah, we're gonna have to set up magnesium. And if you've ever been on magnesium, it's not fun. You feel like a zombie. Like, you just don't feel good at all. And I was on magnesium with Valentina when I was induced. But at least this time, like, when I was on it, I was able to get up, walk around, go use the bathroom. With Tino, no. Like, I was bedridden. I had a catheter. I couldn't go number 2. If I did, I had to use a bedpan and have a nurse clean me. And I held it in, basically. They put me on magnesium. They're like, yeah, you're gonna have to stay for, I think it was like a minimum of 24 hours. I got readmitted to labor and delivery early Wednesday morning around like 7 a.m. And I didn't get discharged until the morning of Thanksgiving, so Thursday. The OB that had discharged me the first day was asking me, because she knew my history, she's like, okay, well, if everything's good, like, I'll do my checks and you'll be discharged. And so she was actually the same OB that was on for the day that I got readmitted. She's like, she felt so bad. Like, she was like, oh my gosh, like, you're back, I'm so sorry, like, what happened, blah, 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 blah. And I was telling her everything. And then she's like, okay, we're gonna run some tests, blah, 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 blah. And then I remember falling asleep because the magnesium makes you, like, really, like, zombie tired. I remember her coming back in, and I woke up, and she's like, yeah, it looks like you have postpartum preeclampsia. And I'm just like, oh my freaking god, like, I cannot get away from this stupid preeclampsia stuff. And so they're like, we're gonna have to keep you. It was just, like, not a good time. And then I just remember, like, when the nurse told me that I have to stay for longer than 24 hours, I just started bawling my eyes out, because I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, I just had a baby, I want to be with my baby, and I have to be in the freaking hospital. It's whatever. I'm just grateful that my in-laws were in town, because I don't know how we would have done it with just me and Angel. We're in triage, honestly, for a couple hours, and at this point, my tailbone is hurting so bad from these god dang hospital beds. And I'm like, do you have, like, a cushion I can sit on? My tailbone just hurts. And she's like, no, I'm so sorry. And I'm just like, what the freak? I kept trying to readjust myself. That's, like, one of the parts that I remember, just readjusting myself. Like, I was just so uncomfortable. And it's funny, because when we left my house to go back to the hospital, Angel was like, oh, do we need to bring a change of clothes? I was like, no, probably not. Like, I probably won't. Like, we probably won't be staying. And we ended up staying. And yeah, so we didn't have any extra clothes. But he actually went home to shower. He brought some clothes for us back to the hospital. Yeah, so we were in the hospital for a couple days. I was in the high risk unit, which it actually was so much nicer than my first. Honestly, my first postpartum room was so tiny. So my second room, the high risk unit room, it was nice. I don't know which experience was worse, like my first one or my second one, because my first one with Tino, like, I wasn't allowed to get out of bed for 3 days while being induced, because I was sent in on a Monday, didn't give birth till Wednesday, and couldn't get out of bed because I was on magnesium and they didn't want me to fall. I don't know which experience was worse. They were both pretty bad. And I didn't have an epidural with Roman, so that was, like, really painful. But anyways, my blood pressure was going down with the magnesium, which was good. And then they sent me prescriptions to my pharmacies, then ended up discharging me Thanksgiving morning so that I could go home. And I got to be home for Thanksgiving with my in-laws, my babies, my husband. So I'm just glad I was able to make it home, and I'm glad that I listened to my body, because Like, I did not feel good. I had a blood pressure check a couple days after I was discharged to check up on me, and everything was looking good. When I went to my checkup, I remember asking, did I just have gestational hypertension or did I have preeclampsia? Because like nobody really told me. She's like, no, it says here in your chart you had postpartum preeclampsia. There is just regular high blood pressure with pregnancy, but then there's the preeclampsia, which I was reading up on, and because I was like, I didn't really know the difference. I just knew that it was like really like dangerous, and I read that it can cause organ failure. And I was like, no wonder why they kept asking me if my stomach hurt. And my stomach, it was painful. I was like, I don't know if it's just like those postpartum like cramping because your uterus is like going back down in size. But I was like, no, like I did not feel like this with Valentino. It really, really hurt. I was like, that makes sense. That organ, because there's the regular high blood pressure, right? And then the preeclampsia causes organ failure. And so that's why they were like, yeah, that's a good thing. Like, you came back to the hospital. I'm still on my blood pressure medicine to this day. They actually, at my 6-week postpartum appointment a couple weeks ago, they lowered my dosage from 90 to 30. And then I have to see a primary care doctor to see if it's like continuing, I guess. Yeah, that's basically my labor and delivery story. It was a crazy one. It was a quick ride, but after having epidural and no epidural, I'm glad that I can say I've experienced both. But I'm not having any more kids, but if I were to have more kids, yeah, I would want the epidural. I always hear stories about people saying like when they have the epidural, they don't really remember their labor and delivery like experience. And I don't know, like when I had no epidural, I blacked out, so I don't remember that really much at all, besides like the pain I was in. But at least with the epidural with Tina, like I remember I almost fell asleep while I was pushing because I didn't feel nothing. And if you've had the epidural, you know like what it makes you feel like. It just makes you feel like nothing, basically. I don't know, the epidural just made it peaceful, and I would get the epidural again, but I am not having any more kids, so I won't have to get an epidural again. No more kids for me. You know, I really want a daughter, but I hate being pregnant. I absolutely hate being pregnant. I do not know how people like being pregnant. It's not for me. Roman is actually 2 months old. He turned 2 months old yesterday. He is growing like a freaking weed. He's growing so quick, and he has so much hair. He's so like happy. He's copying sounds already. He's smiling at people. And honestly, I feel like my whole pregnancy and labor and delivery with Tina, it almost felt, I don't know, like I wasn't there. Even during my whole pregnancy, it just didn't feel real. But now that I have both of them, it feels more real to me. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's hitting me more with Roman that I have 2 babies. I felt like with Tina, like in a dream state. But now I'm 2 people's mom. Like, that's so crazy to me. And if you know me in real life, I did not want to have kids. I was like, it's so against having children of my own and all that. But literally the moment I found out I was pregnant, the next day, okay, so actually with Tina, the first day that I found out I was pregnant, I was bawling my eyes out crying. What am I going to do? I cannot be a mother because of all those previous thoughts that I had for myself. But then literally the next day I was looking at baby names, I was looking at clothes, I was looking at furniture. I was getting so excited to become a little mommy, and I honestly could not experience my life any other way right now because I feel like it's made me a better person too. Being a mom, I have more sympathy, I have more compassion for people, I have more compassion for children, more patience. It's definitely made me into a better person because before I was very selfish. I only cared about myself, I'm not gonna lie. And being a mother has been a journey, but for the better, and I'm happy to be a mom. I'm happy to have my little family. I have a great partner. I have a good support system. My village is a little bit further away. My immediate family lives about 6 hours away, and then my in-laws live in New Jersey, so across the country. And my other half of my immediate family lives in Virginia. At least I have some family that's in California. This is a 6-hour drive or 8-hour plane ride. And honestly, I feel so much better this postpartum than I did with Tino. Maybe it's just because I'm happy not to be pregnant anymore, because my pregnancy was actually miserable. They are going to be best friends, hopefully. If you watched this whole video, thanks for getting ready with me. I hope you found this story time entertaining. now I'm gonna go pick out an outfit. I'm actually gonna be vlogging my day today too, so keep an eye out for that video. But yeah, I will see you guys in the vlog if you decide to meet me over there. This is the final look.